I'm going first to Silent Cipher. So I have multiple reports, but the one that I really want to focus on is this particular one here. And it says Warner Brothers considering selling stake in WB Games, new report. Now, this was written by Zamini Khan. I don't know the publication because all I do is have the screenshot. I will eventually find out who and where they write for. So, of course, we can give the proper clarification and credit to where we pull the story from. But this is what it says, Silent. WB Games acquisition rumors have resurfaced once again after a Financial Times published a fresh report claiming that Warner Brothers Discovery is looking to offload some of its smaller divisions. The latest report suggests that WB is considering selling a big stake in the games division, which now houses some of the biggest IPs in gaming, including Batman, Mortal Kombat, and Harry Potter. You can also add Lord of the Rings to that as well. These are monster IPs. Now, Silent, this goes right into what I said in the opening. Microsoft is now in the collection phase of their transition for being the biggest publisher in gaming. And in order to retain that mantle moving forward, you need to add legacy IP to your collection. And I know it sounds ridiculous where I'm talking about like if they're collecting G.I. Joe figures or whatever, but that's how it is. They have Minecraft. They have Halo, Gears, and Forza. Regardless of how you feel about these tentpole titles, they're owned by Microsoft. Now, when you consider what else they own, Silent, you can say, well, Fallout. And of course, Elder Scrolls, and now Starfield, and Wolfenstein, Indiana Jones. I mean, the list is staggering. So in order to push Game Pass to its next 50 million, 75 million, 100 million, they needed to make a monster move, and they did. And they closed owning Activision Blizzard King. And now, on top of the titles I just mentioned, they have Call of Duty, they have World of Warcraft, they have Diablo. I mean, the list just keeps going on and on and on. This is a situation where I kind of feel that they are literally at the right place at the right time. Because, again, there was a point in time before ABK and that 2.5-year tie-up that they were considering jumping in and buying all of Warner Brothers. If they get the gaming division, you're talking about major talent with major studios, but more importantly, major IP. Let's get your hot take on this breaking news.
Yeah, so there's a couple things about this that still make me wonder if now is the time, right? WB, obviously, from what we could tell when we talked about this back in the past, there were issues where WB was either not ready, they were too greedy with what they wanted, and so like things didn't happen. Obviously, ABK happened, so that stopped the possibility of these things from happening at that point in time. I think the thing that gets me still and still kind of weighs on me with it is I don't know if WB is desperate enough yet, because the way that they're approaching this, they're still acting like they have say in what the terms are. Because they're like, well, we'll let you use these IPs,
Exactly.
we'll license them out to you, but we won't sell you the IPs. And I think the thing is it feels like as they continue to get more and more desperate, and as things start to ratchet up on them more and more in regards to sales, I think they need to read the room, and they need to understand that they might actually have to jettison and part ways with some of those IPs and franchises that they own before something like this actually happens.
Yep.
Because I don't know if Microsoft really is interested in being like, yeah, we're gonna license this out to you. I'm sorry, but like, I feel like WB still thinks that they're in control of the narrative of this conversation, and that hubris is only going to continue to make them hemorrhage money.
Yep.
So I don't think we're there yet. I wish that I could jump on here and I could be all sunshine and rainbows and be like, yo, we're gonna have Batman on our system, the next exclusive, blah blah blah, or like
Yeah.
some new big release. I just don't see it yet because I feel like WB is in a place where they think they can still negotiate, and they're not desperate enough. I think something will happen, and probably sooner than later. But I don't think they're there yet because I think they still expect that they can, as MJ Dark in the chat says, buying the cow, buying the cow and separating the milk from that purchase, right? Like separating those two things, like no, it's an all or nothing deal. And if you think that we're just going to license something out, you're out of your mind. Like we come here for the full IP, the full franchise rights, license, all that stuff. We're not here to rent something out from you. Like that's not what Microsoft is there
No.
for.
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, if I may add some context to what you're saying and some confirmation,
Sure.
that point, Silent, is exactly why the deal fell through. Because they back then wanted full control on the IPs, where Microsoft would sign a deal to have them licensed out for a decade or maybe 15 years. That's not what that's not the
No.
life that they're looking to lead. They want to
Right.
be owner. Want to have full ownership of it. And that's exactly why. I mean, look, if you look at Phil Spencer's history as running the brand, he has always had that particular issue where if we don't control it, I don't want it. And you know something? I used to give him a lot of stuff for that. But I'm like, oh, come on, man, like team up with Marvel. But these things are expensive. I mean, look what happened to Insomniac and Sony. They're in bed with Marvel in a big way, and it went from 25% now to 35% licensing fee. And on top of that, they get 50% on every bundle, not the actual total bundle, but the game. So the game is in there for $50. Marvel's getting $25 of that. I don't think people understand that. So for every Spider-Man 2 that was sold in a bundle, Sony only got $25. And they made a lot of money, but that licensing fee hurts. So you're onto something.
Yeah, I think it's just yeah, there's a lot to it. Obviously, we're not going to see the whole picture. Obviously, from our side of things, a lot of things will never come to light that we'll see from it. But yeah, just from a surface level, it's obvious that WB is not ready. They're not there. They're not there yet. They think that they can still negotiate, and it's Microsoft, as you mentioned, just like what Phil said back in the day, is like that's not what they're there for. They're not interested in renting the game. They're interested in buying the entire production. Like they don't want to sit there and play games like that. You've seen a lot of companies that have leased things off like this in the past. Obviously, like EA had it with the 007 license back in the day. You had EA with Star Wars, which that turned horribly because EA wasn't doing their due diligence, and completely kind of crapped the bed back in the time of the loot box scandal. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how it shakes out. I'll be curious how long WB thinks that they can hold on before they're like literally just hemorrhaged as much money as they can, and they're in even more desperate terms. It's going to be an interesting couple months. I think it'll be sooner than later, but I would imagine within the next year there's going to be some very drastic changes with them.
Well, I mean, we have it on confirmed authority that they're over $9 billion in debt. Right? It may even be higher right now. I saw a
It's a lot
report,
of
and I don't have it in front of me, where there was a mistake in the numbers, and it might be over 10 billion. That's a real problem. I don't know how long they could stay the way that they are. Fuzzy, I want to pull a story or a particular quote that Shinobi 602 put on his Twitter page. Now, the article was written by IGN. I didn't pull the article. I'm simply only referring to what Shinobi said. I'm not clicking on the article because I'm not giving them any business. But this was, in fact, written by IGN, and a spokesperson for WB Games says this: WB is now looking to license its franchises to other game studios. And I quote, "We have 11 studios here. We have a lot of IP, and there's also a lot of interest among others in coming to take advantage of some of that IP for gaming, which we are currently looking at." Now, this is one of those two-sided coins. I want to get your hot take on whether an acquisition is the right move for Microsoft, because again, what Silent Cypher said about maybe they're not desperate enough where they're looking to sell, because that's exactly how, I mean, you can say what you want about it, but that's how Activision happened. They were desperate. Bobby K knew they were going to lose a whole bunch of money. Even with Call of Duty being the monster it was, they had all those pending lawsuits. They still have stuff going on in the background. So that's why they came to particularly Microsoft, and well, they were desperate. I don't know if this screams desperation. I can tell you that the second half of this conversation is going to be what IP versus teaming up with what Microsoft Game Studio or Xbox Game Studio, because I have a lot of ideas of who I'd like to see take on the next Batman, take on one of their IPs. But I will say that even if you don't get the DC license, you buy Mortal Kombat outright, you buy Harry Potter outright. These are IPs that are going to move mountains. Not only are they going to still sell on other consoles, because a perfect example, Fuzzy, is who sold the most games last year. Oh, that's right, that was Hogwarts Legacy. Beat out Call of Duty in 2023. That is a very difficult thing to do, and they've already announced a sequel, which is great. Let's get your hot take on whether or not this is the right move for Microsoft to take on, and more importantly, do you think that maybe injecting a lot of money, getting a seat on the board to make decisions, so that if this thing does go defunct, they just buy it, the pennies on the dollar?
Right. That's a tough one. Like, the NetherRealm and Mortal Kombat are the easy pickings. That's like the low-hanging fruit. If they can piecemeal it, that's the one you get. Even though it's a different style fighter than Killer Instinct, I would love to see what NetherRealm can do with Killer Instinct. Even if there's like a crossover, even if you don't keep it exclusive, just a crossover between Mortal Kombat and then Killer Instinct would be awesome to see. But in general, that's the easiest one. Now, I would want the patent for the Nemesis system, which they, I guess, patented a while ago. I forget the specific studio that they have that under, but grab that patent, because you could always use that in any of your games, or you can license it out. Microsoft has a lot of patents for different software and different game stack stuff that other studios use, that they get a certain licensing fee. So for the way the game stack works, I would say that in itself is probably worth that acquisition of that patent. Because if they're looking to step out of gaming, I can't really see WB really wanting to hold on to that at that point. But the key thing is going to be things like Hogwarts, things like the DC characters. If they could get exclusive rights for, let's say, for video games, whether it's on PC, mobile, or console kind of thing, I think that would have to be in the contract for it to be worth their while. Like Hogwarts, I think you'd still have to go through J.K. Rowling's or whatever her name is as far as for that. So there would still be her involvement. I don't think they have the overall exclusive, but it would definitely be worth their while in acquiring that studio, because that studio used to do like Disney type games or mobile type games, and they went and made Hogwarts on like their first try of like a full-fledged licensed console game, and they knocked it out of the park. So that there is talent in that studio in itself. So that studio is probably worthwhile for even handing them one of your existing IPs. So I would say that studio in itself is probably worthwhile, even if you don't get Hogwarts, because I think you still have to go through what's her name to get that licensing. But as far as things like Rocksteady, that's a tough one, because from what I hear, some of the talent that was there when they were making the Batman series and stuff have moved on to other studios. Not all of them, but I think one of the founders, or maybe two of the founders, left and have started their own studio. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
they're both
Rocksteady,
founders. Yep,
yeah.
that's
So,
correct.
so I don't know if Rocksteady is as valuable as it was when they were first in talks with ABK and stuff. But at this point, there is still talent there. Whether people want to believe it or not, Suicide Squad is a worthwhile game, even though I guess the gaming media kind of made their mind up on that game before they even played it. But as far as the other studios, they really need that DC license. They really need, I guess at this point, I think, what do you call it? Um, I'm pretty sure Amazon has licensing rights either from um, Embracer, or Amazon full on its own has Lord of the Rings, which
Yes.
Yeah.
that would be another one that they'd have to work with. But they already have a good working relationship with Amazon, so I don't really see that being as much of an issue. But the DC characters, that's the one. I know they're not going to want like a 10-year or 15-year guarantee. I think they're going to want a permanent guarantee. Um, and if they can't get that permanent guarantee, then I would say at least walk away from the other studios. But Avalanche, I don't think. Well, actually, that Avalanche I think is the one that is working on or not Concord, Contraband. So
Yes.
they have some ties. They already have their fingers kind of in the jar right now. So I think maybe Avalanche is worthwhile, especially if Contraband hits. Uh, Pick up that studio on the cheap, and then that way you can continue on and make sequels or other spin-offs and things like that within that universe for that game. But the DC license is the most valuable part, and they're going to have to not really put the screws to WB, but make it quite clear that they need to have the video game rights indefinitely or in perpetuity or whatever you call it type of deal. So that way there's no question. And that leaves WB with the rights so they can still make movies, still make TV series, still make cartoons, still make the toys and whatnot. And then at that point, they can work together with Microsoft on a partnership for timing of some of those movies and the games. So that way they have the cross synergy between the two. And I think that would be in the best interest of both. But from a gaming standpoint, if they don't part with DC, then just get NetherRealm, get Avalanche, and close the checkbook after that. Until they are, like Silent Cypher said, until they're in more desperate needs, as far as wanting to get a buyout or a bailout to some extent. I would say hold off otherwise.